Hello, you're listening to Overwhelm is Optional. So as we start to emerge from lockdown here in the UK in July 2020, I just wanted to do an episode to reflect on your state of being in overwhelm and what it feels like for you. So did overwhelm increase during lockdown? Did it decrease? It's worth paying attention to what's going on for you so that you can just take anything good that you can salvage from what's been a really unusual and tricky situation the past few months. And with so much uncertainty, we don't know whether we're going to end up with a second spike and another lockdown. So I think it's worth just pausing as we are starting to emerge into this strange world of face masks and hand sanitizer and not being able to hug the people we love very often. So what was it like for you? So I did do an episode back in April about what it felt like to be in lockdown, but I want to give you a chance to really reflect on what were the gifts for you. And I don't mean that it was brilliant for you and therefore you've got gifts. I mean there are gifts in the reflection, and it's worth thinking about it because it was such an unusual situation. When does that kind of thing ever really happen? It's like being locked in the Big Brother house, isn't it? It's such a bizarre thing to have suddenly been sprung on us that there are things you can learn because you didn't have any choice. So things were deliberately taken away from you that you wouldn't necessarily have chosen to have taken away, or maybe you would have done. And it's such a good opportunity to reflect because it's like a weird experiment. So if you were feeling really, really overwhelmed in March, if life had just got to that point where you were just getting through and you were stuck on that horrible cycle of exhaustion and overwhelm and really just getting through, and you're getting fed up with it, and then lockdown happened, it could have resulted in a lot less overwhelm. It could have resulted in a lot more. Whatever it did, what happened? What was your journey? What did you learn? What was your adventure with overwhelm over the past few months? And how do you feel as you're starting to emerge into the world? What gifts can you take with you? So what did you learn about yourself, about your needs? What makes you happy? What do you want to keep? And what are you really grateful to have back? What did you miss? So let's just take a moment. I'm going to invite you to just tune in, drop into your body for a moment. If you're driving, don't do this. We'll just do it for a couple of minutes. But otherwise, I'm just going to invite you, if you can, close your eyes, and if it's not appropriate, keep them open. And just send all of your awareness, all of your attention down to your feet. Feel your feet on the ground. Allow your belly to soften or not. And notice how you feel. Feel your feet on the ground. Allow your belly to soften. Notice how you feel. Just start to become aware of what's going on for you at the moment. So really thinking about the past couple of weeks and all the changes. Being allowed to go in shops, but with a mask on. Maybe going back to work. Maybe not going back to work. Just notice for you what's going on in your body. So just scanning through your body and just notice anywhere that feels like there's a kind of bracing against the world as we emerge into the outside. Just notice that. Notice any held tension. This might feel like it's part of you just doesn't want to emerge. So you're just looking for patterns of tension in the body. Holding on, bracing against the world. Just notice, don't judge, just notice. It's just information to help you. Feel your feet on the ground. Allow your belly to soften if it wants to. And if it doesn't, that's okay. Don't try and change anything. There's nothing to achieve here. You're not trying to change your state. You're just noticing how you're feeling as you emerge from lockdown. Or if you're not able to emerge yet, how does that feel? So whatever's going on for you, just really tuning into your body and noticing your body's reaction. And you may find some heaviness, something that might feel like sadness or grief, depending on what's been going on for you. If you've lost people, if you've had a really, really sad, difficult time, if people you love have died or been very ill, if you've lost your job, or maybe you've lost time with those you love. Maybe you didn't get to see a grandchild for a long time, or a new baby in the family. Just notice as these things come up for you how that feels in your body. And just get curious about those sensations. Notice any heaviness, any tension, and then notice any lightness. Just notice it all without judging it, completely neutrally. So it can be really helpful here to allow the shoulders to come away from the ears if they want to. And if they don't, just noticing that, noticing any holding. And then take your awareness to your heart, to the centre of your chest. And if you want to, you can put your hands here because that helps draw attention to your heart space. But it also feels nice to place your hands on your heart, on the centre of your chest. And notice any sensations here. So there can be lots of things going on at once. We can feel sad about missing things, and we can also feel excited about new things. And this can feel confusing. So if your mind starts to get involved with stories and judgments, see if you can just drop into the physical sensations in your heart space. And we're not talking about the physical centre here, we're talking about the heart space, the centre of the chest, and just notice physical sensations here, just becoming aware of them. Useful information from your body. Just notice. And whatever you find is whatever you find. It's just information to help you live more skillfully. So don't judge it or wish it away. Just notice. Because however you are matters. And if it's too much, you can just stop. And if it's nice, you can carry on. But I'm going to just invite you to gently open your eyes again. Just become a bit more aware of your surroundings. Just notice generally how you feel. Whether that was pleasant, whether it felt difficult, whether it was relaxing, or whether actually it made you feel kind of more tense because you became aware of stuff you were kind of pushing down. And that's quite common because there's loads of stuff that we don't want to deal with. What are you desperately trying not to feel? But it's worth just listening to what's going on in the body, because when we try and negotiate new and difficult things just with the mind, we can get very quickly overwhelmed because the mind's not particularly equipped to deal with deep emotional stuff without listening to the mind. When we become disconnected from our body, when we push away things that are uncomfortable, we don't have all of the information, and then the mind tends to go round in circles with what if. And at the moment, whatever's going on for you, the world is in a really weird place because we're emerging out of a really unusual situation, and there's a lot of insecurity, there's a lot of uncertainty. Now, there's always uncertainty because we cannot control anything. we can work towards things, but we ultimately don't have control. And living with uncertainty is either terrifying or something that you can learn to do. So that tolerating uncertainty, that tolerating discomfort is a really useful thing. And it's really useful to do it by tuning into the body and noticing what's going on in the body and then not judging it and pushing it away. It's kind of easier or a good foundation. I find it a really useful thing to use for myself and teach to the people I work with, because we can notice ease and unease at the same time in the body, comfort and discomfort in the body at the same time, and then just hold all of that confusion of kind of contradictory signals coming from the body. We can hold them as if it's all the same, instead of letting the frightening, alarming sensations drag our attention. We can just notice that there's these physical sensations and it's useful information rather than pushing away, if that makes sense. So at the same time, you can feel immensely overwhelmed, but there's still ease available to you. So in your body at the same time, so in your whole being, there is overwhelm and ease coexisting. There is unease and ease. There is comfort and discomfort. There is sadness and happiness. There is lightness and heaviness. All of these things just coexist. And living more skillfully, we can start to move our attention towards the things that bring us joy. But there's a way of doing it that doesn't push away the things that we're trying to ignore. So that's a kind of slightly conundrum-y thing to think about. So if we just do positive affirmations without acknowledging what's really going on for us, so you ignore that niggly sensation that something's wrong, and you just focus on all the good, and you can have this amazing positive affirmation, but you're really pushing away, that's not going to work, because there's this disconnection between the body and the mind. But if we drop into the body and notice all of it, but not take it too seriously, not think, oh no, this is terrible, doom, 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 because that's what the mind does. The mind will find all the bad all the time just to keep you safe, but it's a little alarmist, a little bit naggy. So instead, we can say, okay, so there's a whole load of stuff going on for me at the moment. I have really mixed feelings. So I accept that. I feel really sad about this. I feel quite frightened about the uncertainty. But at the same time, I feel really grateful for this, and I'm really excited about that. And you can hold all of those things at once, as if they were the same, because that is just how things are for you at the moment. And accepting where we are, really acknowledging, really listening, is the only place you can really start from, because that's what's going on for you at the moment. And then it's really worth remembering that the mind tends to focus on the negative in order to keep you safe, and you can counterbalance that by going, yes, I acknowledge this is how I feel, but also in my life right now are all these amazing things. And then you're moving from a place where you're integral, you're connected to what's going on for you, but you're practicing this expansive noticing of all the wonderful things around you, because there is always something to be grateful for. But I really think the practice of gratitude and noticing the good without acknowledging your truth in this moment is unhelpful, because I think it can lead to, oh, I ought to be grateful. So you can be having a really, really difficult time, and really you might need better boundaries. Say you're having, you're not being treated very well at work, and you're just going, oh, but I'm really grateful because at least I've got a job. That's not acknowledging what's really going on. So it's helpful to drop into the body and say, yeah, I'm really uncomfortable about the way I've been treating at work. I'm grateful for the job, but this isn't enough because I'm not looking after myself, and so therefore, whatever. whatever you want to do with all that information, but it's useful to have that information. So we're going to apply that to what you noticed, what you can notice over the next few days as this resonates with you. What can you notice about the past few months? So how long has it been? March, April, May, June, July. So it's about, I don't know, it's about 5 months, isn't it? Oh, is it really? No way. Has it been that long? March, April, May, June, July. 5 months. Wow. Time's been really weird, hasn't it, in lockdown? 5 months, goodness me. Yep, anyway, 5 months. Big chunk of your life. So let's dig for gold in that 5 months. What were your highlights? What did you absolutely love about lockdown? And if it's nothing, that's good information. You need to pay attention to that because that's telling you something. But interestingly, as I've kind of started to see more people, mainly family, they've reported to me that a lot of people they know have said the same thing, that actually they've really enjoyed lockdown because it's taken away a lot of the busyness. It's forced them to be still. And although they were people before who didn't particularly want to be still because they love living and they like to do as much as possible and, you know, got goals and fun to be had, they really, really did benefit from just slowing down. And one of the things that seems to be very common in the people I've spoken to is the appreciation of their local environment. So at that point early on here in the UK, when we weren't allowed to drive to go for a walk, and we were only allowed out for an hour a day, everybody seems to have just got out and discovered secret woodlands only a few minutes from their house that they didn't know were there. Or, I don't know, little ponds or just amazing trees, or really noticing. One friend said to me she didn't realise that bluebells came before foxgloves. So just the noticing of the environment, just that real richness of what's going on, how many insects, what the birds are doing, that actually there's a lot going on in the outside world all the time that when you're busy you miss. And being forced to be still and then being desperate for the hour outside, really being excited about that time outside and really noticing the outside rather than maybe being on your phone or just going outside in order to get somewhere on time, because there's a huge difference, isn't there? You can walk past the same things on your way to work. If you were walking to work every day, you go the same route, but your attention's in your head about the coming day. Or you can walk that route during lockdown and you've only got an hour outside and it's so nice to be outside. You notice things that you've never seen before. So that's a gift. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because there's so many sayings about stop and smell the roses, that kind of thing, appreciating nature. And yet we don't do it as much as we intend. So that was one of the gifts that a lot of people have been reporting to me, and also that getting to know their local environment. So for where we live in a village, so you know, there's a lot of beautiful places to walk, but when we moved here we were both working too hard, so we didn't get to do as much exploring, and then losing work during lockdown and then only having an hour a day when you go out. For us, it's resulted in us really discovering our local environment for the first time, even though we moved here, I think it was 3 years ago. And that's amazing. That's such a gift. And now what's happening is it's a few more car journeys than there were, not very many. But what I really noticed is that we've now walked in a lot of the footpaths to the sides of the roads that we have been driving for 3 years, and it's cool. It's like, oh, there's all these secret landscapes either side of the road, and that's been a real gift for us. We're really excited about that. Didn't know that when you buy an OS map, you can you get a free app for your phone of that map. How cool is that? And that's really, really useful. So yeah, been just exploring and being really grateful for the environment. And we were pretty into the environment anyway. That's why we live in the countryside, that's why we live near woods. But for us, even for us who did appreciate it, it's been huge, absolutely huge. And I'm really, really excited about that, because I feel like there's this whole world on my doorstep that I could spend the rest of my life investigating, because there is just so much to explore. So that's been good for me. So what's been good for you? What's been really, really lovely? It's interesting, isn't it? The physical distancing. So the physical distancing, my most painful thing was not being able to see my adult children, but actually we've had more contact. I mean, we had a good, I was happy with the contact we had before, but now we have a lot more contact via WhatsApp and things because of lockdown. And I really appreciate that. That's been really good. Really, really good. So things like that, a lot of people have said they've never heard from their family as much. Will that continue? Well, that's up to you, isn't it? What do you want? So another thing that's been really good for me, and a lot of people I've been talking to, is that not having to be somewhere on time. The rushing from one appointment to the next and having to be on time. Stressful. So you can have like one appointment at 3 o'clock and it somehow seems to take the hour before it as well. Whereas having meetings via Zoom doesn't do that, which has been really good. And yes, I got over Zoomed and it was just too much Zooming. So I cut my meetings down and just made them more efficient, so I wasn't staring at a screen as much. But I really like doing my meetings via Zoom. I'm surprised at the level of connection. I thought, oh no, it wouldn't be the same online, but actually sometimes it's better because for that time. So for example, talking to friends, usually it would be, make a date for a lunch or a walk or something, but that's got to be fitted around their children and their partners and their work. And whereas an hour is a long time. Actually, it's not a quick conversation, is it? It's a proper amount of time. But because you haven't got all the fitting around in the same way, and you haven't got the travelling, it's just been really good, because all you are doing during that hour is listening and talking. And I've really enjoyed that. That's been a real gift to me. So, and also for me, focusing on my business has been huge. Starting this podcast, I've written the first draft of my first book. So for me, there's been lots of really good things in terms of being able to focus, having the time and the energy to just focus on what I've wanted to focus on, because I've had no choice. I haven't been able to earn money in different ways outside of my house. So it's forced me to be a bit braver about my online offerings, and that's a good thing. And I'm really glad I started this podcast. Really glad. I'm really enjoying it. I hope you are too. Please tell more people, because as one person who sent me some lovely feedback said, when I asked her if I could use her comments as a review, she said, of course, more people need to know. Everybody needs to know about this podcast, because it's been really helping her accept herself. And that was just such an amazing message to receive. So thank you for everybody who has contacted me to tell me how much you're enjoying my podcast. I really, really appreciate it. Please subscribe and share, because people need to know. It might help them too. Anyway, back to what are your gifts of lockdown? So when we did the tune into the body at the beginning, what came up for you? What were the things that you were really grateful for? So that might be that as we're coming out of lockdown, you're losing those things. If you're having to go back and work, if you were really okay with working at home and now you're having to go back to an office, there might be some feelings of resistance to that, some sadness, some grief. Just notice that. Doesn't mean you have to do anything with it. It's just that if you use this information, if you just acknowledge it, you're being kind to yourself, and that's essential. That attention on ourselves, that tuning in and listening, acknowledging, even when we don't feel we can do anything yet, it's really important. Often we push away things because it just feels like it's another demand, it's another thing to deal with. It's not. It's just how things really are. And we need to step into that. We're in a more powerful position when we're really authentic, when we really listen to ourselves, when we're honest with ourselves. It doesn't mean you have to rush out and quit your job or tell people that actually you hate working there because you loved being at home. There's a way of negotiating that, but it starts with you. It starts with you saying, yes, this is what was true for me in lockdown. These are my gifts. This is what I found out about myself, about my life, about who I live with, about who I work with, about how I've set my life up, about what the life I've created for myself that was completely disrupted by a global pandemic. This is what I learned. What were the gifts for you? So, what did you love? Did you read all your books? I read loads of books. Did you discover new podcasts that you love? Did you discover better ways of interacting with those you love? Did you drop friendships which actually turned out not to be that important to you? Did you develop new friendships? I met loads of people in the entrepreneurial world. Absolutely loved it. Took a bit of bravery, but wow, why not? It's a pandemic. It's a real time for bravery, isn't it? Did you sleep better? I found it really interesting that, well, there were conflicting reports in the media about mental health and sleep. And there was a lot about, oh, people aren't sleeping properly, it's messing up their sleep. Were you one of the people who sleep was disturbed, or actually did you really catch up on your sleep? Because time was moved, time wasn't as strict. What happened for you? What did you learn about that? So it's interesting, isn't it, when you hear it? The media tends to report bad stuff. So it's, oh yeah, nobody's sleeping. But actually, I think a lot of people were sleeping a lot. I mean, certainly the people I was talking to were saying, yeah, it's great. I love not having the alarm. I really, really appreciate not having to push the kids out the door to school, because that's got to be one of the most stressful parts of parenting in the day-to-day routine, isn't it? That getting somewhere on time, a whole family out the door with everything they need. That's hard work. So yes, it's hard work having them at home, but that was one of the things they appreciated, was not having the alarm, because actually to get their kids out of the door, even though they worked from home, they were having to wake up in the wrong part of their sleep cycle, and it was making them chronically tired. So not having that was a real gift. So that's what they know now. Whereas they probably wouldn't have known that, because you don't necessarily notice that when you're on holiday. Not necessarily. It's not always long enough, and because you're completely out of routine, you don't always click about these things. So this was an extraordinary time for really noticing details in your life. So yeah, what else was good for you? There's another thing that I think is quite interesting, is about clothes, and how I now feel like I have too many clothes. And should I just wear dresses gardening? I mean, I wear dresses anyway, gardening, but they're kind of older ones, and it's kind of like, well, you could just wear your posher gear gardening now. It doesn't really matter, does it? Because I don't know, it just seems to be different. My relationship with clothes has changed. What's been your relationship with your clothes? I know a lot of people have done a lot of clearing out. Hopefully people are buying less clothes, because apparently in the UK we're like the worst for quick turnaround of fashion in Europe, which is really sad, really, really sad. And the whole of the clothing fashion industry needs a serious overhaul, doesn't it? Because of slavery and environmental concerns, all of it. And also our relationships to our body. You know, some of the clothes just don't celebrate the body. They restrict the body, or they make the body look worse, or they demand that you are a certain shape. So therefore they're not very flattering, and then you don't feel so happy. So there's a lot of issues with fashion, particularly in the UK. So hopefully, I'm really hopeful that that's going to shift some things for a lot of people. A lot of people I've spoken to have said it has changed the way they think about their clothes and how they get dressed for the better. It's like they don't need as much stuff, and they just feel more comfortable in their bodies. And I didn't quite understand the whole thing reported in the media. often I just don't understand what's going on in the media. It seems so far removed from people around me. Maybe that's because I live in the countryside and not in the city, I don't know. But that whole thing, oh yeah, everybody's now just in their pyjamas all day or wearing sweatpants all day. Nobody I know was doing that. Mostly people were just wearing what they wanted and a bit more comfortable. I don't know. Then there's the whole makeup thing, isn't there? I don't really care about that. I don't know. Some people do. It's up to you. But what do you notice? Are you really excited about dressing up and going out to work again? Because it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what's right for you. What are you excited about? Or was it really nice to not have to paint your whole face every day? What does that tell you about what you're having to do to brace yourself against the world? And is there anything that you can embrace about yourself? I don't know. What's true for you? And then let's just start to shift, because there's loads of things about lockdown I could talk about, but what will you not miss? What was the worst thing for you? What are you really excited to be doing again? So a close friend of mine absolutely loves the gym. So on Saturday when the gym's opened, she was so excited, just so hilariously happy. So I'm really grateful the gym's open for her, because that's really important to her. What's important to you? What have you missed? So I think it's been much harder on extroverts than introverts. Obviously, for us introverts, it's been a real gift. But for extroverts, I have no idea. Maybe you were just on Zoom all day. I don't know how, as an extrovert, if you get your energy from interacting with other people, it must have been really difficult. Was it really difficult? I must remember to ask my extrovert friends. The ones that I've talked to were actually really happy, which was really interesting and really, really surprising for me, but they were really, really happy. Yeah, which is really nice, really exciting. Because I think as introverts and extroverts, we have things to give each other, don't we? But because the world tended to be for extroverts until lockdown, when suddenly it was very introvert biased, I think often as introverts we feel that the extroverts have more to learn from us. I think we have things to learn from each other, and I think we need each other, but the world has been incredibly biased towards extroverts. So if I think of my kids when they went to school, great report, but needs to talk more, is too shy. And that's what I had on my school reports as well, is too shy. Seriously? No. No. Is a deep thinker, appreciates nature, is incredibly self-contained, which is a good thing. These aren't bad things, they're just different things. So are you an extrovert or an introvert? If you're not sure, introverts recharge in general, need a lot of time on their own to recharge, and even if we are sociable and love other people, we become exhausted if we need, like, after one social engagement we need like a week off, whereas extroverts, it's the other way around. So extroverts recharge in social situations. You can't always tell who's an introvert or an extrovert, you would think, but not everybody's that extreme, so don't assume, but do think about it for you. So if you found being locked down actually recharged you because you've got a lot of space, that's really important information for you. Maybe you didn't realise, maybe you didn't know that you were an introvert, because often we don't know we're introverts until later in life because we don't want to acknowledge it, because actually it's not celebrated, it's not seen as a good thing, it's always seen as a problem, something that needs to be undone. If I think about this throughout my life, there's often been comments, particularly when I was younger, spends too much time in her head, is a bit daydreamy, isn't very sociable, that kind of thing, reads too much, yeah, get your head out of your books. No, thank you, quite happy. My head is out of books a lot, but I also like to read a lot. But yeah, the world's very biased towards extroverts. So if you discovered things about slowing down and having more time to reflect and really appreciating your space, what does that tell you? And how can you take that forward? So what did you learn? So, but the things that you've really, really missed, the things that you're most excited about happening, like the gym opening for my friend, notice that expansiveness in your heart, that excitement, that energizing thing. So what is exciting for you right now? What are you most looking forward to? And just notice that, really notice that. Celebrate who you are. What's been great about lockdown? What's been really pants? Bring it all together, tune into your body, really listen, really notice. You don't have to do anything with it, but I highly recommend noticing, because it's part of learning to live more skillfully. It's deep mindfulness. It's body-centered mindfulness. It's really grounding. It's really useful. And ultimately, it's about self-acceptance. And I really think the older I get, the more life is about self-acceptance. I noticed Tim Ferriss was talking about this in his mailing list mail out last week. So Tim Ferriss, I have a huge amount of respect for him, have his books, love what he writes. But it's been really interesting watching him talking recently about how actually it's not about being more productive or being more successful, getting more done. It's ultimately about self-acceptance and happiness. And that doesn't come necessarily from achieving your goals. I don't know if he said exactly that, but that's where I'm going with this. He was adding something important to that debate. And I wrote a blog a few weeks ago about success versus health, and how it can easily end up sacrificing our very selves, our bodies, our health, our relationship, our well-being, our sanity, in order to become successful, and how this is clearly a nonsense, because there is no such thing as success versus health. So for me, this tuning in, this listening, this getting out of your head into your body, this noticing what brings you joy, what creates overwhelm for you, what brings you ease, what makes you uneasy, all of this is really, really useful, because you're unique and how you are in the world matters. It matters very, very much. So pay attention as we start to unfold out of lockdown. What feels easy for you? What feels harder for you? What brings you joy? What you're excited about? What you're uneasy about? And what do you want to keep? What patterns and rhythms have really nourished you in lockdown that you can just keep? You know, it's acceptable to say, actually, no, I can't do that next week, and that's it. You don't have to explain why you're not as available socially as you were before lockdown. You can just spread out your social engagements. If for you slowing down, having more time at home was good, then you have a choice. We don't have choices about everything immediately. Don't push stuff away. If you're really unhappy about going back to work, acknowledge that. Even if you still have to go to work, acknowledge, respect yourself, listen. You are important.